Shaquille O'Neal was one of the most dominant big men of his generation. He made 15 All-Star games and won 4 championships. Shaq was the face of the NBA at a time when the league was looking for the next Michael Jordan. But Shaq is more than just a basketball player. He's appeared in dozens of movies, released 4 albums, and is even on the board of directors for one of the largest pizza chains in the United States. This is the story of Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was born in New Jersey to 2 parents that were both over 6 feet in height. By the time he was aged 13, he was already 6'6", and he practiced his basketball skills at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America in Newark. Being a part of a military family, Shaq moved to Germany, and after returning, was 16 years old. By this time, he was already 6'10", and when he played high school basketball, he led his team to a 68-1 record over 2 seasons. His senior season was one that was especially notable. He drew comparisons to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar by the way that he used his hook shot. He also set a state record for total rebounds that year, attracting attention from many different colleges. Shaq would go on to play at Louisiana State University, averaging 14 points, 12 rebounds, and nearly 4 blocks per game as a freshman. LSU would lose in the second round of the college tournament, but Shaq was establishing himself as one of the best players in college basketball. His sophomore season is when things really started to take off. He averaged 28 points per game, 15 rebounds per game, and 5 blocks. While that was enough for him to be named Player of the Year, his team lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament, which was worse than the previous year. In his third year in college, Shaq averaged 24 points per game and 14 rebounds, averaging 5.2 blocks on top of that. While it was a small step back from a scoring and rebounding standpoint, it didn't really matter. Shaq was still considered one of the best players in America and was considering the NBA draft at this point. He would eventually enter the draft, joining a class that included both Alonzo Mourning and Christian Laettner. The Magic had the first overall pick, and despite there being a lot of talent available, there was no question as to who the number 1 pick would be. Shaq would be going to Orlando.
Rice falling away, won't go. O'Neal the rebound. Now the Magic with a final shot chance. O'Neal runs the floor, takes it on.
A lot of players have a development curve when they go from college basketball to the NBA. That was not the case for Shaq. Out of the gate, he averaged 23 points, 14 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks per game. He was an all-star as a rookie, leading the Magic to 41 wins, which was 20 more than they had the season prior. Over the course of the next 3 seasons, Shaq would make 3 All-NBA teams. He was a phenomenal player and one of the best in the league, but he still wanted to take another step. The Magic were competitive in the playoffs, but they couldn't quite reach an NBA championship. They ran into the Hakeem Olajuwon Rockets at first, and then in Shaq's final year in Orlando, the Chicago Bulls decided to start a 3-year-long dynasty behind Michael Jordan, and they won 72 games in a single season in 1995. In the summer following his 4th NBA season, Shaq had a decision to make, one that would affect NBA history. In the summer of 1996, 2 teams got into a bidding war for Shaquille O'Neal. The first was the team that drafted him, the Orlando Magic. The other was the Los Angeles Lakers. The Magic offered about 7 years for $119 million, with the Lakers offering initially a little bit below that at $95 million. Still, they would get their offer up, and Shaq would make the decision to move to LA. He was actually one of 2 major additions for the Lakers that year. The second was a guy named Kobe Bryant. Between the two, the Lakers would become one of the best teams in the NBA for a long time. 96-97 was Shaq's first year in LA. The team finished with over 55 wins and went out in the second round of the playoffs, losing to the Utah Jazz. While the Lakers were good and Shaq was great, they still didn't have that bona fide second star. That would change in the following year when Kobe Bryant made his first NBA All-Star team. Additionally, Shaq averaged over 28 points per game and 12 rebounds. He was phenomenal, making his first ever All-NBA first team, as well as carrying the Lakers to over 60 wins. In the playoffs, the Lakers beat the Trailblazers and Supersonics on their way to play the Utah Jazz in the conference finals, who they would be swept by. The lockout-shortened 98-99 campaign saw the Lakers go 31-19, which was fine, but they were swept in only the second round of the playoffs against the San Antonio Spurs. This led the Lakers to make a decision. The Lakers had hired Phil Jackson. Everything was finally aligning for the Lakers. They had a supporting cast that included Glenn Rice, Ron Harper, Rick Fox, Derek Fisher, and Robert Horry. Kobe Bryant, now 21 years old, had averaged 23 points and 5 assists. He was one of the best players in the NBA. But that's before mentioning what Shaq would do. Shaquille O'Neal averaged 30 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks on his way to winning the 2000 NBA MVP award. He was dominant in a way that the NBA had not seen in years. He led the Lakers to a 67-15 record. In the playoffs, the Lakers beat the Kings and Suns on the way to the Western Conference Finals. In Game 7 against the Blazers, the Lakers trailed by 13 points heading into the fourth quarter. Both Shaq and Kobe went ballistic, each of whom scored 9 points in the fourth quarter, allowing the Lakers to come back and win, sending them to the finals to play the Indiana Pacers. In those finals, Shaq averaged 38 points per game, 17 rebounds per game, and 2.7 blocks. The Pacers simply had no answer, and the Lakers would win in 6 games. The following year, the Lakers once again would win the championship, this time with Shaq averaging 29 points per game, and the Lakers finishing with 56 wins. LA ran through the playoffs, in fact, losing only 1 game out of 16 played matches. By this point, the pairing of Kobe and Shaq was among the best in the league. Both were capable of scoring 40 points per game any night, and both players actually averaged over 28 points per game in the 2000-2001 season. The following year, the Lakers won 58 games. Shaq was named to his 3rd straight All-NBA first team as he averaged 27 points and 11 rebounds. The Lakers, in the playoffs, would do well once again. They swept the Trailblazers in the first round, beat the Spurs in 5 games before beating the Kings in the conference finals. With all due respect to the New Jersey Nets, they weren't stopping this Lakers team from three-peating. So Shaq was once again an NBA champion. Over the next 2 seasons, cracks would start to form between the relationship of Shaq and Kobe. While they were both still clearly talented, there were fundamental differences between their approach to basketball and how they played. Shaq was obviously more relaxed, while Kobe made basketball his life. While obviously there was talent from both players, each person wanted to do something specifically after that three-peat. Kobe wanted the challenge of having his own team and not having to be the second star. Shaq still viewed himself as the guy, and he wanted to remain that way. So while the Lakers remained contenders, they didn't win a championship over the course of the next 2 years. In 2004, they went to the finals and played the Pistons, but their lack of chemistry showed, and they lost in 5 games. On July 14th, 2004, the Heat traded for Shaquille O'Neal. They dealt Caron Butler, Brian Grant, Lamar Odom, a 2006 first-round pick, and 2006 7th-round pick for O'Neal. Shaq, now 32 years old, was coming off of 5 straight All-NBA first teams. And while he wouldn't replicate his peak scoring output from the Lakers to the Heat, he was still one of the best players in the NBA and made an awesome pairing with Dwayne Wade, an upcoming star. The team worked well enough right out of the gate to win almost 60 games under Stan Van Gundy. Shaq averaged 23 points and 10 rebounds, while Dwayne Wade averaged 24 points and nearly 7 assists. He was one of the best two-way guards in the NBA at only 23 years old. The Heat swept both the Nets and Wizards on their way to play the Detroit Pistons in the conference finals. That series went 7 games long, with the Heat losing in Game 7 by a score of 88-82, just barely missing out on the NBA Finals. The following year, the Heat did just as well. They finished with 52 wins. Despite playing in less than 60 total games and having arguably the worst statistical season of his career, Shaq still finished on the All-NBA first team, making it his 7th consecutive appearance. He averaged 20 points and 9 rebounds per game. When it was playoff time, the Heat delivered. They beat the Bulls in the first round, the Nets in the second, and beat the Pistons in the conference finals. Then they squared off against the Dallas Mavericks. In the 6-game series, Shaquille O'Neal averaged 13 points and 10 rebounds. The Heat beat the Mavs in 4 games to 2. This gave Shaq his 4th ring and Dwayne Wade his 1st. 06-07 was less eventful. Shaq only played about 40 games and the Heat went 44-38. They lost in the first round of the Chicago Bulls, and Shaq was starting to decline as he was about 35 years old now. From this point in his career, he would be traded the following season to the Phoenix Suns. He would make an all-star appearance there, but just very clearly wasn't the same player as he was in LA and Miami. He then went on to play in both Boston and Cleveland before retiring from the NBA, leaving behind a legacy as one of the greatest big men to ever play the game, having a physical and dominant game unlike anything anybody has seen before in basketball. Off the court, Shaq has been just as big of a personality as on the court. He's adopted several different nicknames actually over the course of the years, including the Diesel, Shaq Fu, Superman, and the Big Aristotle. He's also been in countless commercials such as Pepsi, Taco Bell, Nestle's Crunch, Burger King, Radio Shack, Reebok, Icy Hot, and a lot more. He's even on the board of directors for Papa John's. For a limited time, you could actually get a Shaq-a-Roni pizza. Back in 1993, Shaq actually started to release music. He has 5 albums, one of which is a compilation. Shaq Diesel, released in '93, actually went platinum. He's also been in a variety of movies and TV shows, appearing in Grown Ups 2, Jack and Jill, Scary Movie 4, and was in an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's a lot more than this, but you get the point. Shaq is one of only 5 NBA players to net a worth of over $200 million. He's invested in companies such as Google, General Electric, Apple, PepsiCo, etc. From 2015 to 2022, Shaq actually owned a minority stake in the Sacramento Kings. That was arguably his least successful stretch in the NBA. Shaq was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2016, and he's been with Turner Sports covering the NBA since 2011, when he retired. Shaq is one of the biggest personalities both on and off the court that the NBA has ever seen. Just like his height and how he played the game, his impact goes beyond measurement. There has arguably been no player as dominant as Shaq since he left the NBA. But even since that point, he's remained an A-list celebrity. A lot of times it's hard to tell whether athletes are being themselves. That wasn't the case with Shaq. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps with the algorithm and grow the channel. If you like the music featured in this video, please check out Edna Cargill. The Bandcamp link for that is in my description. Additionally, if you want to check out my Twitter, you can find it at dj.png and the new Patreon as well. Both links are in the description. I hope you enjoyed. I promise I will never make you wait this long for another video again. See you soon.